Look at this. This will trigger the largest crypto bull run ever. We literally saw that.
Again soon, and ETH heading toward uncharted highs as adoption accelerates. The bottom line, if Powell's liquidity thesis plays out, we're on the edge of phase 3 of the banana zone.
So we're always talking about banana zone. What is the banana zone? This is the biggest question a lot of people have. Banana zone literally is a bull run rally, like a bull run off support. So yeah, that is what Raoul Pal is it's not a meme in a sense. It's when people are calling, buying the dip and getting it sky high. That's what actually happened to XRP this year.
The bottom line, if Powell's liquidity thesis plays out, we're on the edge of phase 3 of the banana zone, a high momentum phase where prices can go parabolic. And for him, crypto remains the single best bet to outpace currency debasement. Let's get right into the latest interview with Raoul Pal, as he gives his latest crypto market outlook and why he says the bull run is only getting started. Drop your comments down below and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here.
And Cardano's seen tons of videos. It's 78.
So Cardano has been kind of on a downtrend lately compared to XRP. They both launched at the same time, but Stellar has grown, same as XRP, which tells me there is a lot of potential for utility US coins to win big. There's literally 450% growth that we are seeing right now just from these tokens. It's not like Bitcoin has outperformed XRP. Maybe in the last 2 years, but this year, XRP has definitely won its race.
The other assets doing it. Now, Robinhood, could they have chosen Solana to build on? Yeah, but they chose an ETH layer too. So, look, I've never had...
Like banks could be choosing Ethereum, but they are choosing the fastest transactions for the lowest amount of money, and that is XRP. XRP clearly has the most transactions compared to any other chain. So this is really good, Raoul Pal is saying. Especially for XRP, what we're seeing right now.
An issue with ETH, and yes, it underperforms over periods in time, but it's like, this is the core foundation stone of Web3 is ETH. And everything else kind of builds around it, Bitcoin being a separate beast. So what I had done is, we've talked about this before, the second cycle trade where somebody's got Lindy effect and you buy it, which was Solana at the low in 22, is usually the best trade of all because it's kind of been de-risked. And then people have the light bulb moment, which they're having again with ETH, right? But ETH has gone through that Lindy effect in the past. And I'm like, this stuff is survived the Lindy effects. There's a group of collectors who passionately care about XCOPY, Beeple, whoever it may be, Sam Spratt, all of this stuff. And that this stuff is likely over time, as the wealth in this space, I think it goes from $3 trillion to $100 trillion over the next 8 years.
$100 trillion market cap would basically mean, what, $25, $30 XRP?
Right, so it has always been a proven store of value. I think the stuff that I started buying in 2024, early 2024, is up between 3 and 5x in ETH terms. And then ETH is up another, whatever X, depending where you bought them. So they become this massive multiplier trade. I've said this for a long time. And I mean, as you know, my main bet has been Sui for a while. And before that was Solana. Those rotations have done well. Sui still generally outperforming Solana over a longer term basis. I think the next phase of Bitcoin dominance, we're seeing the ETH rotation trade. That's good. The catch up is happening. Okay, once it gets into kind of mid-value versus Bitcoin again.
I feel like what really didn't help XRP grow the past 3 years was, number one, the lawsuit, and number two, basically the markets being bad. So with that being improved, this is where XRP could really improve and, have it skyrocket the limit.
Then I think we'll see the rest of the space utterly ignite. And as we know, once you throw in a lot of liquidity into lower free float things, they go up more. And that's how it always plays out. And that's where we are in the cycle. Now, one of the things on the macro side that we look at is the influence of the business cycle on that particular trade. And it's the same trade you and I have grown up with in markets, is earnings have to go up for people to go further out the risk curve. So when the ISM picks up properly, the business cycle picks up, corporates and people earn more. And what we find is, in the bond market, it goes out to junk, then out to emerging market junk, and then out to private credit. We see small caps outperforming big caps in equity markets. We see all of this, and it's the same with the altcoins. The issue is everybody thinks their altcoin should go up. That's the issue.
I feel like that's what people are calling my altcoin should be up, but the ones that will grow up most and which ones have been the past year and this year are utility tokens, utility US based tokens, and that's exactly what XRP is.
It's like everyone's like, well, mine hasn't gone up, so therefore this is all wrong. It's like you need to have the right altcoins, and I think people mid-curve it. They get so involved in the value benefits of their particular token, when really there's one simple thing: is go onto CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap and look at crypto. And we've talked about this. It's like, I'm sorry, but people are going to buy XRP and Doge and Cardano, whether you like it or not, because they're cheap. In the absolute term of.
So yeah, when the retail investors come in, they literally don't have a reason to get Bitcoin or Ethereum, which are super expensive to them. They will just buy some Doge, XRP. They will buy something that's under $5, right? Because you can own many of something. It's like a psychological thing. And that's where XRP really wins. It's cheap and you can buy many of it. That's what happened with Shiba Inu.
How much do you pay for a token? So people will do that. The alt layer ones that are getting absolute network adoption, Solana, Sui, few others, great. And then somewhere in the middle, we'll see what happens. But I think the middle part is the harder play.
We're now in the part of the cycle where global liquidity, measured by the M2 money supply, is starting to turn higher. Historically,
like literally retail is not here yet. It's just coming in.
Every major Bitcoin rally has followed this same pattern, with prices accelerating a few months after M2 begins rising. Raoul says that correlation isn't coincidence. Liquidity is the single biggest driver of crypto markets. As M2 expands, capital flows down the risk curve, first into Bitcoin, then into Ethereum, and eventually across the entire altcoin space.
So when you speak to friends now, some people got bored in crypto over that period of sideways consolidation. They're all punting options on tech stocks, right? So the speculative fervor and the confidence that I can make money in this because everything's trending because of the debasement and everything else, and we've got some mega narratives like AI, makes it pretty easy game to make money in. You know, I've had this everything code thesis for quite a while now, but generally speaking, the crypto space has understood debasement of currency versus inflation, which is what TradFi thought of. And we've been on this trade saying they need to refinance the debt. That's the whole everything code thesis. And here is Scott Bessent coming out saying publicly, we need stablecoins to refi the debt. Trump.
Guys, also sorry, I don't know why the voice is cutting out. It should have been fixed in that sense. It's not on my side.
They're telling you what the game is. And there's still a lot of TradFi people who don't want to understand it because debasement's not a thing that was taught at university. What beats the debasement? Debasement's about 8% plus a bit of inflation, whatever. So call it 10, 11%, 12%. Well, the S&P does that. So that doesn't help. Gold does a little bit less. So that doesn't.
I'm not too sure what debasement is. So debasement, if I understand, is in economics is when something starts losing its value or like a decline, you know, your dollar being worth less. Didn't XRP do the exact opposite of a debasement, like going up 600%? So maybe you have like $1 here now, and it's literally getting like a decline in the last 20 years, basically.
Gold does a little bit less.
So yeah, gold is a bit less debasement, you know, how much of a purchasing power, but Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, they literally grew in the basement 1,000 times.
Correlations of the long-term drivers of the asset prices, 97.5% of the NASDAQ is explained by debasement, liquidity, and 90% of crypto. So you've got the largest dominant factor in the history of macro markets over the longest persistent period of time, since 2008. So you basically only need to care about one thing, that. And the other side is how fast is it being adopted, which is why it outperforms the debasement. So in which case you've got only one macro factor that matters, which is why I keep saying to everybody it's all noise. Nobody cares because it's 90% of all price movement is explained by one factor. If it's crypto, then all you need to do is look at what is the strongest performing chart, let's say on a weekly basis, and that happens to be SUI. So I just own that. But you could just own Bitcoin, or you could probably just own ETH, or you could own Solana, and you'll be fine.
I don't know why he didn't mention XRP, but that's what he's calling. Like right now, if you own the US dollar, it will lower in value, especially in the next 10, 20, 30 years. It loses its own value. But when you go big on it, when you go big on crypto, this is where the debasement is. Like what I'm trying to tell you guys is the money right now is having less and less value every 5 years, every 1 year. While other coins, people are going to invest more in utility, not something that, is potentially going to be gone forever, like meme coins. There's a lot of meme coins that disappeared in the last 4 years. People will go more and more into coins that they can check after 20, 25 years, and they will still be there.
So you own one asset, so you don't have to watch this whole basket. And we've all run portfolios, and before you know it, you've got 10 positions that are losing money because you don't focus on them. So it's like, get rid of all of that noise. Then look what Bitcoiners did. The early adopters did nothing. And they compounded more wealth than anybody else in the shortest period of time, pretty much.
So yeah, this is the best. When you can have basically doing nothing and then getting returns on it. That's what XRP is doing right now.
From a few startup founders. So the signal's there. And then if it is one factor, then all you need to worry about is liquidity. That's it. Still feels like the market, if I look at the top 20, it still feels like it's not mature enough, really. So you've kind of got some weird stuff in there. But generally speaking, should work fine. The issue is Bitcoin's a bit too large percentage. You've got the issue of Bitcoin being a bit large, like MSCI World used to have this massive weighting of Japan, and everyone had to produce an ex-Japan version of it. So do you have an ex-Bitcoin version? So you can buy Bitcoin via an ETF and then have everything else ex-Bitcoin. And
yeah, that's an interesting one.
Because Bitcoin is a different beast, right? It's a network adoption model of a new collateral asset. Let's call it that. Well, the rest is really a technology that's being used for other stuff. My overall thesis is space is going from 3.5 trillion to 100 trillion. What's these?
So he's calling we're going from 3 trillion to 100 trillion. Now, this is going to be a hard thing to do for Bitcoin. I feel like his predictions are for the next 10 to 20 years. So if we literally trust the market, if I check the crypto market cap over here, I can actually see here that the market cap in the last year alone since the rally went from 1 trillion to 3.48 trillion. So it did a 400% gain in the last 3 years. So historically, we could be seeing huge changes in the next 20 years. Again, I'm not in a rush with XRP. Could be taking 10 years for it to hit $15, but probably less because it's a compound effect, right? There's always going to be more and more of compounding of money, of people, getting bored of debase. Basically, debase means if something has less and less value. So for example, let's say you buy a car, it has less value than in the next 5 years. While altcoins, this is why people have been buying altcoins, they are giving better returns.
Way to capture it. Well, I built an asset management firm, XPAM, because we invest in hedge funds, a basket of hedge funds. So it's a fund of funds to be able to capture that in the best way possible. And you'll capture that trend just fine. So you can make some really good money out of some of those tech plays. And so we've had some really good ones, but the bulk of my own personal capital, I just keep it in this. It's just easy. The likelihood is it's into Q2 2026. What we would look for from here is a further weakening of the dollar to give us more clarity of that, because it leads as part of financial conditions for a long basis. But probabilistically speaking, it looks like it's going to go on a lot further than people expect, just because the cycle's been extended because they kept rates so high so long. I mean, the reality is, outside of all of the noise, Trueflation is showing inflation at 1.75% and has done for the last several months, and rates are at 4.5%, wherever they are. I mean, rates need to come down 200 basis points, at least. Well, if that comes...
It's calling for rate cuts. I think still rate cuts will not change XRP price that much. Could be the same as with lawsuit. They did not make huge changes, but they definitely will help. Maybe like 5% for XRP, 10%, depending how much rate cuts we get. He's saying if we want to get economy to boom, if we want to get XRP to boom, we need to see these rate cuts happen.
Comes down, people have more disposable income. Meanwhile, the companies that they work for do better, because that's what the ISM going up means, which means people get paid more. That whole positive feedback loop is still to come.
Raoul Pal isn't just calling for a rally. He's practically waving the green flag on what he thinks could be the most explosive crypto cycle yet, running straight through 2026. All the classic signs are flashing: global liquidity turning higher, Bitcoin dominance stalling, and Ethereum sitting in prime position to lead the next wave. If history's any guide, we know what happens when the M2 money supply starts climbing. Capital races down the risk curve. The first stop is Bitcoin, then Ethereum. And before long, the entire altcoin market starts lighting up. Pal calls this the banana zone, the stage where prices don't just rise, they launch. Think parabolic moves, broken records, and price targets that used to sound impossible, suddenly looking conservative. So if Pal is right, we're standing on the edge of a once-in-a-generation window, one where crypto isn't just an investment, it's the single most...
So yeah, this is what a lot of crypto investors have been waiting for the last 3 years, literally pumps like this. It is very good news for XRP investors because utility, technology, and AI will boost the next market run, which historically it is in October and November. So moving on, what will happen when XRP this goes nuclear?